Hello, and welcome to this video on using 1090 to handle your lettings accounting in a slightly faster way. You may already be using the system to add in your tenant receipts, that's the rental payments, to generate your landlord statements as well, and to email them to your landlords. If you're doing this on an individual basis, adding each receipt one by one and then generating each statement, this can take a bit of time, especially if you're managing a high number of lettings. So I'm going to show you today how you can do each part of the lettings accounting, so rent coming in from tenants, generating the statements with the deductions on, and emailing them as well, all in a faster way. So you can do all these actions in bulk. If you'd like to skip ahead to any of these sections, you can go ahead and click now to skip to that particular chapter. Okay, looking at the first chapter, so we're going to be specifically focusing on our CSV import feature. That's where you go to your online banking. You need to go to your client account and look for a button that says download or export transactions, and you want to choose the CSV format. It should give you an option to download into CSV, and it needs to be this exact format for this to work. Once you've got that file, I'll then show you in the system where you can upload it. We will do a matching service, so all of the information in that file, like payee name, reference, amounts, we will use to try and match to a payment to a tenant on your system. And then finally, if you'd like to, we can email all of the tenants a receipt back to say thanks for payment. So that's section 1. Section 2, we're going to be looking at generating the landlord statements in bulk then. So rather than doing each statement one by one, you can click one button to bulk generate them. This will let you preview that your fees and your expenses are set up on each one correctly. And then finally, you can confirm each statement. The final chapter then is emailing all the landlord statements. So you can bulk email each landlord statement in one click rather than having to go through each one. Chapter 2 will be looking at generating the landlord statements. So you've already added in the rents. Now we're looking to bulk generate all the statements in one click. This saves you needing to do it one by one, and it actually allows you to preview that your fees and your expenses are set up correctly on each statement. Moving on to chapter 3. This is where we can then bulk email all the landlord statements in one click as well. So again, just saving you time rather than clicking through each statement one by one and clicking sending off to do an email. This will bulk email all the statements in one go. Now when you do this, you can choose to copy in the landlord's accountants. You can also choose to attach any invoices that were associated on those statements too. So we'll be talking you through each chapter. As I say, you can skip ahead using the chapter feature below on the video if you want to look at that section specifically. Okay, moving on to chapter 1 then. Okay, welcome to chapter 1. So we're looking at importing the rents from the tenants here. So we're adding all of the rental payments in from the tenants in a faster way rather than manually typing them one by one. We have got other guides explaining how to manually type in rents from a tenant. So you can refer to those if that's what you need to do. To confirm though, we're going to be using our CSV import feature here, which there's no additional cost for this. It's available for everyone. And this is if you want to record lots of rents at once. Okay, so to do this, we're going to Home, and then we're going to Finance. Under this Finance tab, there's a few different options you can do here. You can use the menu on the right to navigate these. Now to confirm, we're just going to focus today on this section, so import from a file here. With this bit, it's going to be asking you which bank account you want to record the money into, so I'm selecting the client account. Also which format you want to use, so just select your bank from this list here. If you notice you don't see your bank under this list, do let us know. We can set these up ad hoc for you. So just get in touch with our support team if that's something you need to do. I'm going to be selecting Barclays here, and then you want to choose the file from your computer. Now to confirm, the very first step for this, you will have already needed to have gone to your bank, so say logging into Barclays in this example, then going to your client account, and you'll see a button on there somewhere saying download or export transactions. When you click that, it may then give you a lot of different options. You want to select CSV format. So to confirm, you go into your bank, into the client account, click download or export, and then select CSV as the format. You'll then choose the file from your computer here. It will probably be in your downloads folder. And once you select it, you want to click Upload. You'll then get a screen like this. So just to explain what this page is for, this is essentially a summary page that you get before you fully log and import those payments for the tenants, and you put it on their account. This is a page where you can check each transaction's correct before that happens. So it's almost like a summary screen that you get. Just to explain the information you've got here, the first three columns here, so date, description, and amount, this is the data that we could pull in from your file from the bank. So the date will be the date it was paid into the account. Description is actually a mix of the payee name and the reference that they've put as well when they're paying the money to you. So normally tenants will be putting like part of their address or some unique reference in there, so that'll get pulled in here too. And then you've got the amount here, so the amount they paid in. So we're using all the information we can gather from your bank file to try and match them to the tenancies here on the system. So as an example here, you can see this rental payment. We've got Helen Pinner, that's the payee name. And then she's put 80W as her reference. That has matched to a tenancy on the system where the lead tenant name is Helen Pinner. And it's actually at 80 Wentworth Road, so 80W is matched to 80 Wentworth. And we had enough information to match those together, which is why it says matched here under the status. So with this transaction page here, when you first upload it, it's very much a case of checking each status as you go down, whether it's matched or unmatched here in this example. There will be the odd occasion where the system can't match the payment to anyone, and it will say unmatched, like this one here for Alan. Reason being, often you'll get rental payments in where they're actually not from the lead tenant on the system. They could be from an additional tenant, or they could be from someone else entirely. Equally, it may be actually from the lead tenant, but there's not enough information in their reference, or they may put a completely different reference to what you're expecting, and that will cause it to not match as well. If you see the status saying unmatched like this one here, you really just need to click the edit match icon here. It's like a small pencil, where you can then tell the system, if you know who the correct tenancy is, you know which payment this should be for, you can actually type in here and match it to the correct person. So I'm just going to do an example one here. I think we've got a letting, One Tree Hill as the address. You can actually type in the address or the tenant's name. So if you know either or, go ahead and type those in. You'll see a match come up. I'm actually going to click on this one here, so it should be this letting for this payment. And then if you click this box here, so save match text for tenant, what this does is it will save it for next time. So even if Alan pays again next month, and he pays again with a completely different reference, because I've matched it here and I've ticked this box, it's going to remember this for next time. So it means you don't necessarily have to rely on the tenants changing their references, because we got feedback from agents that it can be difficult for them to do this. So long as you internally match it and you tick this box, the system will remember for you. I'm going to save that. You'll see here now the status has changed to matched for this one. And so long as you've gone through each one and you've checked, okay, this is the right person, Katie is matched to Katie, Kelly is matched to Kelly here, you can then go ahead and click import matches here at the top. When you're importing the matches in, you'll come to this final confirmation page here. What is happening here is the system is just really confirming for you, okay, we're going to put, for example here, £600 towards rent for Stephen James on this letting here, and it's letting you just have one final confirmation. It actually also checks to see whether a rental payment has already been added for that letting, and that's why you see some of these have got warning triangles next to them here. So the reason we're doing this, if you have an accounts team, more than one person doing the accounts, and maybe perhaps one of them likes to add them in manually, typing them in, whereas the other person likes to import from a file like this, to avoid any crossover and avoid any duplicates, we will check on this final confirmation page, just before you press confirm, we'll just check to see whether the rent has already been added. And that's why you're getting these duplicates coming up here. So to avoid adding the rents more than once, you'll want to deselect any way you see these warning triangles here. Okay, so that still leaves me with 5 rents to add in here. I'm going to go ahead and click confirm. And then you'll see here, this is now 5 receipts imported, success, and they've actually each got a reference here, so I know they've all been added correctly. An optional thing you can do at this stage here is go ahead and email a receipt to all these 5 tenants. So we put this in as an optional feature. If you want to, because we have all the tenants' names and email saved, you can just click email and then send. And that's just a quick way of sending like an email back to the tenant saying, thanks, we've received your payment. That's all added. And that's the whole process really of our CSV import feature, getting the rents into the system in a faster way. I'm going to go ahead and show you the next step now, which is generating landlord statements. Welcome to chapter 2 of this tutorial. We're looking now at generating the landlord statements in a faster way here. So you may be familiar with the system already if you're doing the accounts and generating the landlord statements one by one. There's a manual process you could do with this where you record the rents in and then you click onto each letting individually and you can generate a statement there and send them. Faster way of doing this, so you go to Home and you go to Alerts. We're looking at this one here, so Rent Due to Landlord, third one down. Click into this list. Now this just contains a list really of all of the tenant receipts that you've added in. So as soon as you record money in from a tenant, it immediately goes into Rent Due to Landlord. And you'll see the ones that we imported from chapter 1 will be in this list now. Now, in this list here, you can see quite a lot of information. So who the landlord is, which letting it's linked to, so whether it's a letting level statement or a landlord level statement. Because remember, in 1090 you can do it per letting, or you can do almost like a portfolio statement, which would be an example here. So for John Crew, this is a portfolio statement for them. It's not one letting. It will tell you when their last statement was that you did here. The next one due will be a month later. And then it will also be telling you if there's any arrears. So we had some feedback from agents mentioning they would like to know before they generate the landlord statement if there's any arrears on them. So we've got this column in here so you can check that. Now, in this list, you could individually click Generate Statements, and that's going to pull in the rent that you can see there. It's going to apply your fees and deductions. We're actually going to do this in bulk here. So where it says Bulk Generate Statements, I'm going to do it today's date. And you'll be taken to a bit of a summary screen here. So before fully confirming and each statement's fully created with a reference, you can just check the transactions on each one to make sure they're correct. So we would strongly recommend you go through these and preview them to make sure everything's looking good on them. I'm going to start with this one at the bottom here for Michael Hobbins. So if I click Preview Transactions, so with the crucial thing here, without you needing to click away from the screen and maybe go into the letting or anywhere else, you can quickly just get a pop-up which will tell you all the transactions on that statement. So I can see the rents come in, £600 here for that period. I've got my letting fee on this one, so £100 plus VAT, and I've also got my typical management fee as well. So the difference between these, we've got the letting fee, which would normally be the kind of admin fee that you charge on the very first statement. So that's appearing here on this one. Then I've got my 8% management fee, which is normally a monthly commission here. So it gives you a chance to check the income and deductions are correct before moving on. In this example here, you can see that Michael Hobbins, it's just a statement for that particular letting. It's linked to that one. John Crew is actually a landlord level statement, which means it could contain more than one letting. They've got a portfolio and they might want it all on one statement. I'll just show you an example of this. So you can see this statement here actually contains income from Wharf Road and also Sunbeam as well. So 2 different addresses. And we have got income coming in from both. We've actually then got an expense on Wharf Road. There was a boiler charge here. And our management fees as well. Finally, John Crew is an overseas landlord, so we're charging NRL tax on this as well. So the balance before NRL is this number. We're then taking NRL tax at 20% and retaining it, leaving the balance to pay at the bottom there. So it's worth previewing each of these once you've got the rents in and you're generating these statements. Just make sure you preview each one as you go through it. For example, if I preview this one from Daniel Dixon here, I can actually see it does contain the rent. However, there's no fees on this one. My fees are missing. So perhaps when you're setting up the tenancy, the management fee wasn't entered and it hasn't been applied here. So therefore I know that I don't want to generate this statement at this point. I need to go back to it. So you can untick it here if that's the case. Okay, Now I've previewed and checked all the others, and I've got them ticked, I'm going to press confirm. And the system has then generated the statements. These are full PDF statements with your branding and a reference for each of these landlords then. Just looking at one as an example, so we had Michael Hobbins here. If I wanted to see what, the actual PDF version of what the landlord would see, you can click the PDF button here on the right. Now you'll notice this has got our branding. It's like a demo system. If you've got a system with us, it's going to have your branding on. But you can see it's got the landlord's name and address. It's got a reference. The tenancy address is here with the current tenant that's in there. And then all the transactions there. Okay. If I go back a step now, I'm going to go back to the alerts page. So home alerts. And that is the second part of this video complete. So far we've recorded all the rents and we've generated the statements of the landlords. Moving on to chapter 3 then, we'll be looking at settling the landlord statements and then emailing them as well. So that is done from landlord statements to be settled here. In this section, it's showing you all of the final balances that you need to pay to the landlord. So far we've recorded the rents in chapter 1. Chapter 2 was generating the statements, and applying your fees and deductions to get you that balance. And this really is just the final list of, okay, here's the people to pay and here's the balance to pay them. Like the other screens we've looked at, you could settle them one by one by clicking the buttons here on the right, but we're going to be looking at bulk settling them here to speed up time here. Okay. On this screen, it will be asking you date settled. Settled in 1090 means basically paid. So when you first generate a landlord statement, it's pending, and then when you settle it, it means you paid it. So I'm going to basically be telling the system I'm paying these balances on today's date by bank transfer and from the client account here. One thing to note with some of these, you can see most of the balances here are positive. So I need to pay 642 to Daniel Dixon here. But then, for example, the next one down is negative. So we've got a minus figure here. With these, what agents will typically do is let that negative balance carry on to the next month. Therefore, when you receive the rent from the tenant next month, this will net off against each other and it kind of pays off the debt that way. So the system will do that for you automatically. To do that, you would really just leave this one as it is. So it doesn't need any payment reference. It doesn't need anything received. You can just leave it ticked. If, however, you may get the landlord who, you generate the statement for them, it's got a negative balance on, like let's say the one at the bottom here, they owe you £527 here. If they've paid you some money towards that, or even the full balance, you can type it in the received box here. So let's say they've transferred you, I don't know, they wanted to pay you £250 off that balance there. If they've paid you that, you can type it in received, and that will pay off their debt there. Or if they've paid off the full balance, you can type in the full balance there, and that means that their debt is paid off, and next month's statement will be clear, basically. Now this is probably more unusual. It's more typical for agents to not receive any money from landlords really, and they just let the tenant's rent, net off against it. So if that's the case, simply just leave these boxes blank. If you're happy with all the balances to pay and you've checked each one, you can leave these all ticked and press confirm. So now we've got all the landlord statements generated, we've got the references from before, and we've also said that we settled them for today. So the system thinks they're basically paid out at this point. What you would typically do from this page then is bulk email the statements. So click bulk email there in the top right. Now you've got a list of each landlord with their email address saved in the system, and you can choose to attach any invoices or copy in their accountants as well on this page. So we have a field on each landlord where you're able to enter their accountant's email address. If they would like to get a copy of the monthly statements, it just means when you're bulk emailing them here, you can copy in their accountants. Attaching invoice files, just to explain this, if on any of the statements you had a deduction on there, say for maintenance or a gas certificate or something like that, if you then link that to a supplier invoice in the system, you can choose to attach the invoice here. That means the landlord will get a copy, like an email from you with the statement attached and also an invoice attached to it as well. So that's optional. It just means if you want them to get the actual real invoice from the contractor, you can do that here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click send here, and that's going to send off the statements to all these landlords. Once that's sent out, that's pretty much the third step done. So in total, we've imported all the rents from the tenants using the CSV file. We've then bulk generated all the statements in one click and previewed them when we did that. And then the third step here was settling the statements and emailing them. So you can see here it says success, 8 statements have been emailed out. We actually keep track on the system of which statements have or haven't been emailed, just in case you are going, more than one of you doing accounts, or you're going back over things, just to avoid you sending it more than once. I'm going to go back to the alerts page now. So you'll see we've essentially been working our way down this list. So we did the CSV import, we then did rent due to landlord here, bulk generated them, they moved down into landlord statements to be settled, and you can see that's cleared off now. So that concludes the video today on doing the lettings accounting in a faster way. If you'd like to recap any of the steps in the video, then feel free to click back into any of the separate chapters. Equally, if you prefer a written guide on this, you can go to our help page here on the right, and you can type in some keywords to look up help guides. If we type in CSV into this, you will see that the top result, importing tenant receipts from a bank statement CSV. If you click on this, this is essentially a written guide on what I've gone through today, importing the rents in. So feel free to refer back to this, or in fact, feel free to get in touch with our support team at any point if you need help. So that's using our typical support number or email address, and we'll be able to help you on any of the steps in this process.